We call it the Analytics Insider because you bring speakers who are leaders in their fields to talk about a theme that is central to the evolution of analytics in practice. How does it change lives? And how does it work in organizations? The topic for today, as you know, is privacy and personalization. And what we mean is how can we achieve both objectives? And each of these speakers have prepared their comments, their opinions, and their vision of what it could be from the perspective of their industry and their individual perspective as well.
It's a pleasure to be here today. I am a graduate of CASE 20 years ago, a long time ago, but I did go to school here. It was definitely cheaper then, but still quite expensive, as many of you know. Today we're talking about your rights, privacy, and so I thought I would just maybe try to get some conversation, debate about some different examples you've all heard recently. Search, right? Everybody Googles. You can't survive without Googling, okay? So did you guys know that you could actually get your information from Google? This is how you do it. We can get you this information later. I've done this, right? I went out and found out. This one actually scares me a lot more than Facebook, honestly, because I don't think you realize how much information Google tracks on everybody. You know, it's not just every time you go out and search. And by the way, if you're searching for 20 years, can you imagine the profile they're creating about you? Every time you go out and look for something, and then someone's going to talk about AI here. You know, some AI will know way more about any person. They're going to draw corollaries about you. So, you know, and this was their. I pulled this quote from Larry Page, by the way. Don't be evil, but just do the best things we know for our users, for our customers, for everyone. So I think if we were known for that, it would be a wonderful thing. I don't know if I know them for that. I know them, again, as being an amazing advertising company, but I don't think of Google as being altruistic. I don't think of them as operating in all of our best interests. Again, they have to make a living. They really started as an advertising company. They're also a software company. Fantastic business, great investment, but I don't know about that evil comment. So here, I actually went and downloaded, you know, all the data. I went and filled out that form, and then I looked at all the stuff they're tracking on me. So this is everything, right? So, you know, some interesting stuff. If you use their calendar, right? If you're using Chrome, all your searches that you go to, all the web pages. If you use Google Drive, your data out there, Google Pay, what you're buying. It tracks mail. How many people use Google Maps? When you do, it's keeping track of you. It knows where you're going. And it's cross-referencing that against what pages you search and what you buy, what your Android configuration is. How many people use Android phones in here? Again, it's tracking all that stuff. Purchases and reservations. And by the way, they own YouTube, in case you didn't know. Think about it. I think the point of my presentation is, you know, at the end of the day, innovation costs money. Companies aren't going to go out for free and innovate, right? It costs money. So, you know, you have to, if you want innovation, you have to be willing to sacrifice potentially whatever that company wants from you, okay? So that's one of them. You know, AI, machine learning, speech and facial recognition, this is all convenience, but you're giving up a hell of a lot of privacy. And I think for me, it all boils down to, are people capable of really understanding all this when you put it all together out there? Do you really understand the profile of you, the digital profile that's floating around in the world, and what people could do with it? Because ignorance is not a defense, so you should understand personally the risks of using Alexa, and you may or may not, but those companies have an obligation to follow the law, but you also probably have an obligation to understand the risks associated with all the things you do on your digital footprint out there in the world. So
could you get to a point where the privacy and the disclosures are just easier to understand, and then everybody kind of knows what you're opting into and what they're going to do instead of masking it in a 500-page user agreement?
Yeah, I think there's two ways that happens. One is the one I mentioned. You know, our leaders have to get better at making this easier for your average person to understand, because you shouldn't need a law degree to understand your rights. I agree with that. I think consumers also have a responsibility here, because individually you don't have a voice, but in aggregate you have a voice. If people start dropping out of Facebook and it affects their profitability, they will respond because you're the consumer. You know, I do this all day. I listen to my customers. That's all I do. I get customer surveys every day about how their experience went, and then people get emails from me. Either they did a great job or a poor job, but that's how I run my business. That's how all businesses are run. If the consumer is unhappy, they'll respond. So if the consumers in aggregate want you to make a change, if you want to make a change to Facebook, you know, you need to get them to listen. Because you're right, they have 2 billion users. Why switch? That's the best network in the history of mankind. So they have critical mass. I won't switch, but I think you got to use your power, not as an individual, but as a community to try to affect change on them.
Thank you.